The number of dead over an amateur film deriding Islam is now more than 50, just 1 week since the protests began. The latest victims were a dozen people in Kabul, killed instantly when an Afghan suicide bomber rammed a car full of explosives into their minibus. And joining the fray now is Thailand, where rank upon rank of riot police formed a perimeter outside the US Embassy. Hundreds more protesters marched on the mission, waving banners and chanting against America. The embassy was put on lockdown ahead of the protests, and all non-essential staff were sent away for safety. RT's Priya Sridhar now reports on the most violent of recent episodes.
More than 10 people have died in Kabul, Afghanistan today after a vehicle slammed into a minivan full of aviation workers. We know that most of those individuals that were killed in the attack today were foreigners. Now, all of this is happening as a result of an American-made movie called The Innocence of Muslims. The group that has taken responsibility for this attack in Kabul is known as the Party of Islam, and they're closely tied to the Taliban. They believe that there should not be foreign forces in Afghanistan. This suicide incident actually happened a day after there were protests across Kabul. We've also seen violence increase in Pakistan, tension between police and Pakistani citizens as a result of this video has led to at least 2 people being killed. We saw tens of thousands of people protesting in Lebanon. The leader of Hezbollah has asked for the people of his country to lead a week-long protest as a result of this video, which he believes has been the strongest attack against Islam that he has ever seen.
Well, the protests have been spreading. Have a look at the map right here. They are springing up in more than 30 countries in just 1 week. And violent episodes have been on the rise as well. Militants and terrorists seeking to capitalize on the anger. More large-scale demonstrations are now planned in Iran and Lebanon. More now on the attack in Afghanistan and the increasing role of militants in this conflict with international consultant and former Deputy Speaker of the Belgian Parliament, Loda van Oost. Good to see you today, as I'm sure you're listening to the report. This bombing in Afghanistan isn't the first such attack attributed to the film. It is the deadliest yet. Many saying we are starting to see a trend.
Well, first of all, let me remark that whatever is circulating on the internet, nothing can justify crimes. The people who commit these crimes must be prosecuted and convicted. Having said that, I mean, the people who produce such kind of thing, knowing what the consequences will be, are also guilty of other crimes, which is not to say that the crimes that are now being committed are justifiable. The thing is, if we just look at the so-called spark for these revolts, this film, I mean, it's far more than that. These are people, most of these protesters are people without a job, without any economical perspective, having seen the humiliation, having lived under dictatorships, mostly supported by the US, by Britain, by the European Union for decades. And basically what it is, this is an expression of anger, of humiliation, of frustration, which is not to say, again, for justifying it.
I'm sorry to jump in, but you're saying basically that regarding this, what some are calling a very weak and diluted video on YouTube, people are just actually using this as an excuse to vent anger that's been building up for years.
I'm not talking about these protests in general. Many of these people are genuinely protesting against this insult for what they believe in. But it's absolutely sure that there are also organizations who use this for their own goals, extremist movements. I mean, we all now begin to see that the attack on the consulate in Libya was actually a very well-prepared commando attack. I mean, the anger is always there. This is always happening whenever there's revolt, whenever there's protest, that people will use that as a vehicle for their own agenda. And it's perfectly clear that what's going on is partly anger and frustration of many people, and at the same time, this is being used by extremist movements. That's absolutely clear.
So, Mr. van Oost, we're seeing this now spreading all across the world. It's been going on for just a week. Over 50 approximately now have been killed in the violence. Over 30 countries. We're seeing the short-term effects. Talk about the long-term effects.
Well, I think the short-term effects, of course, you have to do whatever you can to stop these protests. But on the long-term effect, if we do not analyze profoundly and look at the reasons, the historical reasons for why these people are so frustrated and why they always react in this manner, these things are going to repeat themselves again. As long as we do not look into ourselves, what have we been doing there for decades? What are we doing there right now? When I say we, I mean the West. I mean, as long as we do not face that reality, these things will reoccur.
All right, let's turn our attention now to that of Europe. In Belgium, there were clashes a few days ago between hardline Islamists and police. Is it a chance, though, that will actually harm public opinion on Islam?
Well, yeah, of course this does harm public opinion on Islam, but I happen to be very well aware of what happened in the city of Antwerp, and this was largely, I'm very sorry to say, but this particular incident was very heavily exaggerated by our media here. Actually, it was only 5-6 people who started shouting, and then the police who reacted. I mean, but this is what happens when you have these tensions going on, and this is also what happens even in Antwerp when you do not consider the deeper frustration. Most of these kids that you saw on the street were jobless, don't have a proper diploma, etc. As long as in the long term we do not look at these deeper causes, these things will reoccur in Europe and elsewhere.
All right, Lode van Oost, former Deputy Speaker of the Belgian Parliament, thanks for coming on RT today.